like in big stadiums? Yeah, no, it's not like on the telly. You can hardly make out their features. But I was in the same room, the same court room, personal, with Andy Murray and Dan Evans, and got quite a lot of eye contact from them. They were up against a South American pair, including the world number 20. Why was I getting quite a lot of eye contact from them? Wow. My partner and I, the more knowledgeable one, got separated in order to get into this small court, but she wanted to get in as much as me, more. So unusual behaviour from her, just ducked between a railing and a bush. So further down, after doing a little hop over a railing that apparently weren't supposed to, I went back and went further along the bush. There's plenty of holes in it. I'd been there a little while, and 3 English pissed-up prats, I think you'd call them, came in, stood right next to me and started being really challengingly obnoxious. To me, to try and edge me out to get a bit more room, I think. But then they were cheering on Andy Murray, but 75% louder than necessary, or anyone else. They could obviously afford the €10 a pint and €2 for the deposit from the automatic beer dispensers. No barmaids to say, "I think you've had a little too much, sir," in French. And they definitely had that private school accent. But something about look of them, a little bit special needs. At one juncture, Dan Evans needed to have a toilet break, so we were left with Andy Murray doing a bit of stretching of his hip, doing a pelvic thrust in my direction from the opposite side of the court, being end on. It's a bit strange, you can get these long outs, and they're going, "It was good," to line calls when it's what's known as a long out, apparently. So everyone was quite quiet during the toilet break. I felt the need to explain to the crowd that in Britain we don't stop our special needs from embarrassing themselves. Special needs children are allowed to enjoy themselves and express themselves. It's nurtured. How we treat the unfortunate in society is a reflection of our society. I wanted to explain to the crowd how we sometimes elect them to be our Prime Minister. Boris Johnson, much like they do in America, Donald Trump, but without the taint of the sex pest aspect. All Andy and Dan wanted me to do by eye contact communication was to start a shh, going round the little bank of seating, a shush instead of a Mexican wave. Now, I personally would never shush a classroom. Any child, you'd be in trouble. There was another Englishwoman of equal privilege to them that was ranging them for their embarrassing behaviour, but she started getting touched on the shoulder once or twice to get her attention, to wind her up even further, because she bit. But light touch security in a big stadium, there's a shh goes round the start, but you can tell that it's also emanating from the speakers. When all the play is done, the crowd goes home orderly and quietly, en masse, respectful of residents. But in the stadium, groups of school children are taken to watch tennis. Adults that are going for the first time and love to twitch in front of the television and call out at home get a little bit taken along by the crowd. You remember what it was like when you were first going out in public after COVID lockdown? It's a little bit exciting, it's a little bit scary. They're all like-minded people. You feel free to share. You want to have your say as part of that community, be seen, accepted. Society is judged by how it treats the weakest of society. Society is just a crowd of people, really. Are you a liberal, accepting crowd? Are you a crowd under the kind, considerate dictatorship of Kvitova, one of my personal favourite umpires and sibling, so joyous in her Davis Cup training role? Teachers take these children to tournaments to see their heroes, make it more real for them. You could achieve this. All the players want to be in the big moments in the big stadium, but day in, day out, they're mostly on the smaller courts, with retirees watching. In Western Europe, and I can't speak for anywhere else, we're in the habit of treating everyone equally in the classroom. If a child has got Tourette's, we take that into account. We still give them the chance to learn. If they have some other learning difficulty, we take things at a different pace. And yes, a greater percentage of the class does lose out slightly. Competing with the Joneses and just paying the mortgage means that both men and women work until later in life and have children later in life, and perhaps Western Europe has more trust fund children with learning difficulties than anywhere else, apart from perhaps oil-rich states. But those special needs children with money grow up to an age when they're allowed to drink alcohol. I, for one, have been beaten up in the street by a drunk special needs person. What are you supposed to do if you get compensated by them? I personally wouldn't do self-defence to save my life. But the umpire, say Kvitova or anyone else, is essentially the teacher of a very large class, but with others at his disposal, or her. The teacher does rely on other students to have some peer influence, and some crowds definitely do shush a peer pressure disapproval. But there are fans in special needs when they've paid a small fortune to get pissed up out on a jolly that don't have the slightest interest in how they're perceived by others. They're having a good time. It's a type of sociopath behaviour, obviously, but it's been rewarded so many times, and only tends to get stopped by eliciting worse behaviour from who's trying to control them, and then through that they're learning some new behaviours that are worse. Tennis needs to decide what it is, what it wants to be. Does it always want to be niche? Or little cheats like non-existent foot faults? Hypocrisies are legitimate little means to limit everyone's enjoyment and its appeal as a whole. Entertainers can be tamed, so too can the followers. Enthusiasms. Take care.
Let's go! Go on, Dan! Finish that! Go on, Dan! Finish it! On the bridge.
Gentlemen, guys.
Take out it by subtle means, excuses, one or two little catalysts here and there. That camera, the one on 4 wires, points at the audience as much as it points at the player. It is 1984, and there is a preemptive security force, a bit like the social police-municipal negotiations. Only no enforcement. Shadowing and subtle intimidations. If you're an trust fund providing parent, you're a bit embarrassed that your offspring may never learn to add up, but you want to live your indulgent lifestyle that perhaps caused it in the first place. You want them to have friends and enjoy their life. They finish school, they have a small group of friends in a shared house, they're able to do looking after themselves. That's all they've managed to do toward. Yet they need a security guy to keep them out of harm's way. Perhaps ex-military might be good, but the ex-military guy gets a bit frustrated. He's been trained for something really quite different. But he's at their mercy. Anything that he does to displease them, they can effectively dismiss him very easily. So it works with them as the boss. These people are who I'm stood next to during the Andy Murray-Dan Evans doubles game. They're giving me a hard time and I'm getting taint by association. They are 10 times louder than anything that's necessary in quite an intimate encounter with their stars. But you would think that Andy Murray could understand if his mother hadn't taken so much trouble with him. He could have gone the same way, don't you think? I'm quite enjoying it. I'm quietly standing my ground. I'm used to challenging. And they're not children, so I can say what on earth I like. That I know is effective. Quietly, the ex-military joins in and he's much more acid whipped to his sharp tongue. He's worried he can't keep his little group of friends together. They're all going their own ways. I've extricated myself. I'm shouting, more talking loudly really, because it's a small court. In a big court, the special needs overly loud chants get lost somehow in the hole. Murray and Evans are playing people from the southern hemisphere, a Brazilian and an Argentinian. It's pouring with rain. They really should be playing in studs. I'm trying to say dig deep. Northern advantage. It's sort of a joke. Northern hemisphere is an advantage enough. Rainy, wet, cold weather is what you train in at North England. Andy knows what I mean, but he's not interested in his hips so much now. It's his back that's a problem. And he seems to be non-verbally pointing out to me with a nod that, well, it's Dan Evans. He's a southern softy. He doesn't come out anything other than fair weather. I do feel for the superstars that have to put up with the idiots that put them there. And like Ego Swiatek is more than happy to share the information that there's a lot of money at stake. The fan in the audience might think that they're a useful spur, like the cowboy sticks into a rib of the horse, but it's pain. There's always going to be someone in those thousands of people who hit a nerve, perhaps inadvertently, meaning to be supportive, but they plant a seed of irritation. You know how stars like to complain about fame. And this is live, where everything can turn on a breakpoint. But while you might say that most of our tennis stars are fairly bulletproof, because they don't really care at all about the likes of us, I do feel for them a little bit. Because they are human too, and are amply rewarded for their patience. Nick Kyrgios's antics caught up with him and he's knocked it on the head. Yes, it's their own need for a collective euphoria as well. You might think it can distract a team, and I'm sure it can. It can certainly distract an individual player. And when there's only one player on the pitch or court or whatever you're calling it, it could all get a little bit more intense. Just like a joke, I'm told. Timing is everything. If you want to shout out and be heard, come on, my son. You have to do it in an unselfish way, giving, and very occasionally, I think myself personally, when they're just thinking about bouncing the ball to serve, there can often be quite a sort of ad hoc chorus of such enthusiasms. These days, it's just so often that you get, whatever you do, we'll love you type, come on. But just occasionally that fight type cheer makes the difference. I think I did one, you know. I think I did a cheer that made a difference for Gail Monfils. Been videoed to pick out who the hooligans are. Not just the hooligan as described by the other half, but those with potential the tournament organisers deem worthy of further investigation. The next day I had an underclothed, sorry, that was a Freudian slip, an undercover security officer 4 rows down from me at the end of the aisle at the Sinner game. Naomi was before the alcohol ban and Sinner was after the alcohol ban. Now I'm sorry kids if this doesn't get reformed, it wasn't all my fault. There's other idiots in a tennis crowd as well. The undercover guy called in his, and there must be a lot of them, called in his trench coat, blue trench coat, very nice blue trench coat she had on. Made a point of pointing me out in English to her. They sat there having a chat and she called in a guy my age with a bit of salt and pepper around the ears, doing a bit of eye contact and a work smile, 25% grimace. I wanted to think up a good chant for something rhyming with Yannick Sinner. The winner from Sinner is a bit nerdy. Don't panic, Yannick. He was never going to. It was an easy walkover match for him. So they disappeared off and I was back to drinking my half a litre of red wine. Undisturbed and unconcerned. Naomi, I didn't get Wimbledon tickets. Go to Queen's instead, at least as a warm-up. Please.